YouTube, Gen X, what's going on? I got the opportunity to watch Who's Black in America. It aired December 9th, Sunday. And, overall, was I impressed or, underimpressed? No, not really. I mean, overall, I knew what it was going to be about, and I understood that you really can't have this conversation in an hour. And I know that they're not going to touch on stuff that we would like to touch on. It's going to be very surface level. Obviously, it's going to be very kumbaya, very positive, as opposed to being real. Whereas, you leave with that sort of, it's how you want to take it, right? And I may get to that later. But overall, and I may be kind of everywhere here because I have certain notes, um, but then I don't, so I may be freestyling for a little bit of it. But let me start off with this. Um, First, I don't like how whenever we have the conversation about biracial folks not fitting in, we confuse the whole idea of culturally not fitting in versus you don't fit in because you're biracial, right? Because we can, pull on, let's say, a black chick who's light skinned or a dude who's light skinned who has certain features who may almost come off as biracial who fit in. So the question is why? So why do we have it as well that we have somebody who's biracial who seems to fit in, like you're Drake or whoever? Or let's say you're Alicia Keys. Like, why do we kind of have that sort of dynamic where some fit and some don't? Well, a lot of it has to do with the idea of culturally fitting in. I cringe every time I hear the whole middle class biracial chick, right, who sounds and dresses and is into stuff that more than likely she got in some sort of middle class white dominated type of environment. And we're talking about, oh, she doesn't fit in because she's biracial. No, she doesn't fit in because culturally she doesn't necessarily match up. So she is no different from your black chick or dude who grew up upper class or middle class who doesn't fit in because they don't dress a certain way. They don't talk a certain way. That's why they're not fitting in. It's not so much because they're biracial. It is what it is. And I think that oftentimes gets overlooked. And I'm like, yo, look at how she talks. Look at what she's into. Y'all can't sit here and tell me, right, if you took her and made her into a darker skinned black chick, she's not going to have the same issue of not fitting in. So why is it that rush? Oh, it's because she's biracial. No, not at all. So I feel like, folks aren't making that distinction. Um, Secondly, I don't mind personally if somebody's biracial, if they classify themselves as black or not. I understand that the world is going to treat you a certain way regardless of how you identify. So I can understand how it's beneficial for somebody who's biracial to identify as black because that's how they're treated. And from that mindset, it helps them do well, right? It helps them think up who they want to be with how society views them because I think anybody who's successful has to reach that balance where they've reached a point where they are in a position where they've developed an identity that allows them to be happy with who they are, but also not with an identity, right, that's going to help them get through the world in which they're going to view them a certain way. So I don't mind it at all. Literally, I don't. Right? Because I can see how it is. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or black or Asian or black and Filipino or black and Latino or whatever. They're going to see you as black, which I kind of got annoyed in terms of why the special didn't go into that. Whereas, well, why is it that then everybody else has the one drop rule? And how come we haven't really, as a group, decided on what we want to do? But it's clear that if you're black and Asian, you're black. You're black and Latino, you're black. So what's really going on with that? Right? It's almost as if we kind of just took the whole powers that be's definition and just ran with it, which I don't like. If we said, yo, this is what we want to do, I'm okay with that. Whether we decided to, accept it or not accept it, I'm okay, just as long as we kind of came up with that. Not this sort of, we're going to force it down your throat. Which is it's kind of annoying to me. Because like I said before, the special missed out on this, but what if you're black and Asian? What happens now? You're still seen to be black, so quite frankly, right, what do you have to say about that? For all, your Tim Wises and all your other quote-unquote PhDs, what's going on with that? And how does that work for a group if other groups get to self-define themselves in terms of what's, you know, uh, 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 who's part of their race and who isn't? Everybody else gets to do that on their own, but we don't. Think about that. Everybody else, we define what it means to be part of our race. No one else does. I don't care what rule or law you have, but for us, we don't have that right. We don't have that ability. To me, that should raise some questions. And it's definitely at a point where we should, as a group, really come together and say, no, let's be real here. Because right now, to me, it makes no sense. And I'll kind of flesh it out a little bit later. But, I thought they missed out on that. But like I said, for me personally, I can understand why you identify. If the world is going to treat you a certain way, if they're going to look at you a certain way, I understand why you feel the way you feel. Now, moving forward, I guess here's the real meat of what I want to say. When it comes down to seeing biracials as black, I feel like the men have kind of unofficially worked it out, but the women haven't. Right? And oftentimes the women get punked into doing the whole, oh, okay, yeah, she's black and I accept it, right? But they really don't. And I said that to my sister, and she kind of laughed because she knows that I was telling the truth, where it's just like, you don't want to seem like the bitter, hateful, spiteful black chick, but in reality you have an issue. And that issue is legit. So I don't understand why more black women don't really be honest with how they feel about the biracial girl being black. Because what kills me is whenever we talk about, let's say, beauty and dating, then it comes out. Then it comes out. So it's not just brothers making it up. It's the truth. Whenever it comes down to beauty, dating, and who's attractive and who isn't, then it comes out. Then the biracial girl comes out. Then she's not part of the group. Willie Peters touched on this. Multiple brothers have touched on this point. So it's nothing new. So for me, it kills me. It's like, why do you continue to get punked? Come out and say how you feel, as opposed to having it come out in that sort of venue where now it seems like you're angry, bitter, and spiteful. Because in my opinion, you do have a legitimate point. But I guess this kind of even goes into, just black women not really having the ability to truly advocate for themselves. Like I said before, when it comes down to logic and conversation, like, you guys just really aren't there, right? So it's foolish to have, that sort of tone. Like, even if you watch the special, that almost like that idea of acceptance. Oh, we're all the same. It shouldn't matter, yada, 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 right? And I'm like, this is a whole bunch of bullshit, because let CNN or somebody else do another special on beauty and who's getting dated and who's not. Then all of a sudden, colorism comes right up. So why the fuck are we fronting? Or at least the women, why are you guys fronting right now? That's what kills me. But anyways, for the dudes, like I said, we understand, for your brothers that are black, we understand how your biracial cat may want to identify. Yes, he may get a hard time, but overall, especially when we get older, we understand why he views himself as black and why it's beneficial for him to view himself as black. But we don't have the issue because we have that kind of unofficial understanding that, listen, yeah, okay, cool, we'll look at you as a black male, but don't make the mistake as confusing your experience to be just as hard as mine. Yes, it may be hard for you, but it's harder for me, so let's not sit here in front. There's a reason why you're never going to see a guy that looks like Michael Vick as the president of the United States. There's a reason why, right, certain brothers get certain treatments while others don't. Because when you look at the stereotype of the dangerous, angry black male, it's not Kid from Kid and Play. Let's just keep it 100%. It's not Darren Williams. It's not Stephen Curry, and those are basketball players. Those faces don't come up. So those stereotypes that hurt black men are not as significant for you. They're significant, but not as much as it means for us. And I believe even on the special, they had one black PhD who talked about how, it's kind of been proven that, if you're biracial, you don't take as much as a hit when it comes to salary or whatever. I haven't read the study myself, but supposedly there is a study out there that even proves it empirically. So for me, it's just like, because of that, slow down. Don't act like we're in the same ring, because we're really not. When it comes down to how we're treated and how we're viewed and how the stereotype applies to us and how it applies to you. And I think Obama's a perfect example of that. If he was darker, if he looked like Michael Jordan, right? Or let's say even, he looked more like a Will Smith. Would he have been there? Probably not. Because the same harsh negative stereotypes that afflict black men, regardless of what they do, regardless of how they carry themselves, right, does not apply as much. And because of that, right, it has to be clear, yeah, we're on the same boat, but, you're not as uh, severely affected as we are. So let's not play that game. Also, when it comes down to just representation, for brothers, we don't have to worry about, let's say, your biracial dude being passed off as black. We're not worried about that. Even when you watch commercials, right? When they want to depict a black male or just like a black family or black couple, they always have a black man there. And I know, gotta be kidding me, she touched on this as well. They don't fuck around and, we're going to put the biracial dude there and pass him off as black. No. So we don't have to worry about looking on the TV screen and seeing brothers being passed off, right, as black in every sense of the word. No, we're used to seeing Denzel. We're used to seeing, or at least back in the day, Wesley Snipes. We're used to that, or even getting a Will Smith. So when it comes to how we're represented, they get that right. So overall, brothers don't really have a problem. We're straight. So still, when you're talking about hypermasculinity in the black male, you're looking at LeBron James or whoever. So we get that. So we're okay with that. So like I said, we have that unofficial understanding. This is how we work best. As long as you know your place, we acknowledge what you go through. So as a result, we see you as, okay, a brother, even though you may get it hard, even though, we may not always be as courteous, especially when you're younger, or, maybe as open and respectful, because I will, acknowledge that, right? But for the most part, we understand, we get it, especially when we get older. So I don't want to discredit, what your biracial dude may have, what he may have went through younger, teenage, young adult. I don't want to dismiss that. But overall, brothers understand. And a lot of the animosity that may come around is primarily just because of the idea of when you talk about professionally, places where you can go and how you're viewed, right, you have that kind of advantage. But overall, we get it. Now, for the women, you guys haven't got that. So what fucks you guys up is that the biracial girl is seen to be on the same level as your black chick in terms of we have the same experience. And I think when you guys don't fight that and refute that, that's when you get fucked over. So instead of, adopting what the dudes do, you have this sort of kumbaya, black women, we all unite. Like I said, when it comes to dating, beauty, marriage, just like all the other brothers have talked about, all of a sudden, now she's a light-skinned biracial bitch or whatever. So I think, for me, it's real simple. For y'all to make it work so you don't necessarily feel punked or feel annoyed, right, just be honest and say, listen, this is what it is. We understand that, you view yourself as black, looking at, how the world treats you, even maybe looking at how your parents raised you. We understand that. But let's be clear here. We're not necessarily in the same boat. The stereotypes that fall upon black women don't hit you as hard. And I will agree. If we said, if we all sat here and said, picture your angry black woman, right, attitudinal baby mama. I didn't say anything about the color of her skin. I didn't say anything about her features. But the biracial girl isn't going to pop up. Vanessa Williams isn't going to pop up. Let's be 100%. So with that being said, the same sort of stereotypes don't hit you as hard. They don't. And once again, especially even talked about empirically, what your biracial black chicks or just biracials don't take the same hit professionally, and they said that your biracial women are not as severely impacted when it comes to marriage rates. That's what the special also talked about. And that's important when you talk about marriage and what that means socially, what that means economically, what that may mean for health reasons or whatever. That's important. So if a significant issue that affects black women is the whole idea of marriage and having a family, right, it's something that it kind of defines what they're going through, but you don't have that same problem. How can you say you're on the same boat? See, and I think that's where the women get upset and they get annoyed. where it's true. You know, even amongst, you know, my friends, we stay talking about certain chicks, right, who may be biracial or lighter in tone, and they're like whatever's, and I'm like, damn, it's unfortunate because, right, because we're talking about them, these may be the chicks that dudes would more so likely approach and more so marry. And I'm always the one, me and another cat, will be the one to bring up a chick that's, quite frankly, bad. But because she's darker in skin tone, she's not necessarily being acknowledged. So it's shit like that where I feel where black women are coming from. Because I've seen the biracial / light skin chick who's whatever's, right, who stays get hidden up. And you understand what that means later on in terms of who gets married and who doesn't get married. So like I said, you know, with that being said, for the female camp, that's what y'all have to do a better job of doing. Even when it comes to how you're represented, and once again, I know Gotti Be Kidding Me touched on this, it's a problem when you look at how you're represented, especially when it comes down to, let's say, romantic or whatever, in a romantic type of environment, or even on a commercial where they want to depict the black family. It's always the chick who's biracial. It's never your fully black feature type of woman. Never. I mean, I've seen commercials where they have, like, the black father, right, black children, and the biracial mom, and they don't even fucking fit. They may try to pass her off, but they don't. You know, I've seen it where they want to show the love interest of, you know, a white man and a black woman, and she's not the blackest woman in the world. You know, what's her name? The love interest of, what was it, Tom Cruise, what's her name, Dandy Newton or whatever, right, who's almost like the same shit to me as, what's her face? Damn, brain freeze. The chick that did Colombiana, damn. Zoe Saldana, almost like the same person. Right? So you see shit like that where it's just like, all right, you know, we have to look at ourselves, and they're trying to say, here's a black woman, right, but she's biracial. Which is unfair, because once again, brothers don't have to worry about that. And like I said, I still got to give credit to Gotta Be Kidding Me, because she definitely made that a point. I'm sure other women have made that a point as well, but I just remember vividly the videos and conversations that I've been part of with Gotta Be Kidding Me. So I get that. So overall, like I said, y'all don't do a good job at really making that clear. I mean, I watched the special, right? And there was a moment where they had, what's her name? See, I'm just struggling right now. The CNN girl. Shit, what is her name? But anyways, the biracial chick, you know, the CNN girl, who pretty much, you know, hosted the show. And I'm upset I don't know her name right now. But there was a part of it where she said, right, that she considered herself to be a black woman. Right, you know, she never really thought of the whole idea of her not being different from, let's say, India Arie, which is crazy to me. Right, how she honestly believed that she was no different from India Arie, and that's a big problem. So I think, like I said before, y'all don't want to really be upfront from the word go and say, yo, this is what it is. We get it, we understand, but you have this sort of kumbaya, colorism shouldn't matter, yada, yada, yada. We're so big and we're better than this. But when it gets personal, why you're single, why you're not married, why your friends are married, the shit comes up. And it's unfair to little black girls who are told, oh, colorism just shouldn't matter. Don't worry about it. No, we're all the same. It doesn't matter what the tone of your skin is, but unfortunately it does. So how are you helping them by telling the little biracial black girl she's black, and you as a black chick, oh, you should accept it, right? Because in an ideal world, colorism shouldn't matter, but it's not an ideal world. So it's very damaging for that little black girl to be told that the biracial girl, right, who, carries herself in a certain way. Oh, she's black just like you. And girl, don't worry about it. Oh, it doesn't matter. But in a sense, it does matter. So I know there's a lot to the conversation that I'm not adding to and touching on, right? But I don't really feel like, going that deep into it. But like I said, just overall, as far as the women go, y'all have to figure it out. For the dudes, we kind of have it worked out. We have it worked out where we understand we're all in the same team, but don't get carried away. Stephen Curry and Michael Vick don't have the same damn exact experience. And go ahead and look up Stephen Curry. That's a perfect example. Go look him up. We all know how Michael Vick looks like. Go look him up. And no one can tell me, oh, it's the same thing. They have the same exact experience. No. And we understand that. So we move forward. There's no real problems. But for the women, it makes no sense. Y'all sit up there and act like, oh, don't worry. Vanessa Williams and India Arie, they're all in the same boat. We're all the same. Colorism shouldn't matter. I'm not tripping. But yeah, you are. So instead of saying, listen, I get how Vanessa Williams, right? And I'm not talking about her specifically, but just, her type, the biracial girl, right? I understand how there's shit that she went through that is similar to what India Arie goes through, right? Of the world. Or your Tempest Bledsoes of the world. I get how shit is similar, right? But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Respect what I go through. Respect the shit that I have to deal with. Respect the fact that I have to turn on the TV, and even though, right, you guys may make up a small percentage of the black female population, you dominate who's talked about. I have to sit here as a woman and look at, let's say, who's beautiful as a black chick, right, because she has non-black features. No other group has to deal with that. So we have standards of beauty that include non-black blood. No other group has to deal with that. The Asian girl isn't worried about trying to compete with the black and Asian girl. No. Even the black and Latino girl. She's not worried about having to compete with the chick who's, her dad was black and the mom was Puerto Rican. She's not worried about that. In her heyday, Halle Berry and Vanessa Williams, tell me a bitch that was flyer than them, especially Vanessa Williams back in the earlys, when she was on the scene, early 80s or whatever. How many women were actually prettier than her pound for pound? But yet white women weren't trying to compete with her. They were just worried about Michelle Pfeiffer and whoever. So it is what it is. And I think, like I said, because you guys don't say it in the right manner, it just comes out and it makes, y'all look bad, angry, and bitter. But you guys have a point. So I think I made my case here or whatever. I went longer than I wanted to, but, it is what it is. Y'all stay blessed. Y'all know where to find me.